and I am a parenting coach. I guide parents from reactive to calm and responsive. And I'm so excited to share a soulful story today with Pearl.
Sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here. Won't you leave the
And of course, your podcast, Soulful Self-Care Conversations. I am so excited. It's been fun to be back. As some of you know, I took a little time off when I headed off to Greece with my hubby. And so we're back full force with some amazing stories and some guests for you. And today is no different. I have my friend, Leonne Sherr. She is a founder of the Wonder Mama and creator of the Wonder Mama Compass and the Calm Before the Monday. Drawing from her own journey as a mom and a coach, she helps parents replace reactivity with calm, confidence, and connection, creating homes that feel steady, responsive, whole again. And you guys know that all the time I'm talking about, especially to our mamas, but I know we have some men that do it as well. I do not like the word called stay at home mom because you are running a business at home. You are the CEO of that little master house there that you've got going on. And so this conversation today is going to really touch into some of that because I want you like we said, like have that calm, find the confidence to like handle what happens in the household without being reactive. And so today it's going to be fun. Grab a cup of tea or your coffee. It's not my favorite thing. You can get a pen and paper, but if you're driving, no worries because we take the show notes. You can download it and watch them there. So I'm so excited. Hello, Leon. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I am so excited to be here.
Yeah, I can't wait for everybody to hear your wisdom you're going to share. And then also some of our pre conversation. We're going to touch on some of that. However, I didn't share this with you beforehand because this is always fun. I always love to talk to little Leon. I love to know a
Oh,
little bit about her and, what was like life, excuse me, like growing up and how does it compare today to what you do? So I'll give you an example because it's not fair that I have you go and I not go, right? So I always wanted to be a teacher growing up. I thought I was going to be an elementary school teacher. I was going to have, this fun classroom because I'm all about fun and joy and all these great things and have great relationships with the parents. However, where I went to school over in West Palm Beach, Florida, I didn't have the best guidance counselors to help my parents who were clueless on how to go off to college because my dad didn't graduate high school and my mom graduated and took off to Tijuana and got married with my dad. So they didn't have the knowledge. So here I am today. I jokingly say I didn't get to do it in elementary school, but I get to help all those little girls that would have been in my classroom as adults today. So I still do teaching, but just in a different way. So that's a little bit about me. What about little Leon?
oh man, that's amazing. Okay, big question. So when I was young, I've always been precocious, creative, want to solve problems person. So problem solver. And a little bit of a control person. So teacher, leader, I wanted to be the president. So, um, but really what was interesting is as the problem solver, I realized that as I moved through my career, I didn't really get to do that either. My parents were deep faith seekers, and they didn't always make the right decisions because they didn't have a really good foundation either. So my childhood was very unorthodox, but I always knew that I had God's hand on me. I never felt lonely or scared because I always knew something better. So through my career, I really wanted to help others. And I wanted to be in the know. I wanted to know all of the details so that I could help remove the barriers. I worked 30 years in corporate, and then I realized that being a coach is exactly what I needed to do. And it's because it's who I needed when I was doing all the things. I needed somebody to lovingly hold space and accountability with me and guide me. So I got to be who I needed. when I grow up.
I I love that. Like it's so cool how every time I ask this question and people want to come on my show, typically they'll come on and do like a pre-interview. We didn't do that because we got to know each other in a whole nother group. I'm like, I don't need to do that. I know already know her. But I it's so cool. Like if you go back and watch some of the episodes, especially anybody new that's watching us or listening to us for the first time, go back and listen to all the different if you just listen to the openings, there's so much insight on who we are as that little child inside, you know. And often people talk about I got to work on my inner child, and I think it's like a crazy thing, but it's so there's so much to it because sometimes there's things that were told to us or unfortunately done to us that shapes our life. And until we go back
Mhm,
and let her know you're okay, we're okay, you know, we've grown into these different kind of people and it's part of who we are. It's sort of like my grief story. Like I this is my first year, I think, in the 3 years that Matt's passed, and I feel like I'm actually walking alongside my grief and my joy instead of like having to choose which one I want to do, you know? And so it's so powerful when we can, you know, talk to that little girl and recognize this is what we wanted to do when we were younger, and look what we're doing today. And like you said, I wrote down creative problem solver, and then like always knowing something was better. And I think a lot of coaches, I feel like that's something we have in us. Like we know there's something better. And it's a message that like we want to share with others. We want people to know what this I'm getting chills as I said. We want people to know what this feels like to know that there is something better that we don't have to sit in the muck that we're in today, or we don't have to sit in the making choices, and we don't have to sit what I call you don't have to sit in your armor. You don't have to sit in being a mom, a wife, or whatever those titles are. You can sit in being Pearl and being Leon. We can sit in and enjoy that and what they want. And I think when I wrote all that down, I was like, you're a detailed person, is what you said. And then to say
yeah,
you became who you needed. And that's why
yeah,
like when I do my retreats, I talk about my retreats and even on the show here that we all have a story and we have to share our story because you are who other people need to hear as well, that we can, no matter what's happened or what's going on in our life. And as crazy as it sounds, like I tell people all the time, I could sit in my room and cry my life away the rest of the day and people would be like, give me sympathy and everything because I lost my child, but that's not what I want. And I know that's not
mm,
what the original plan was. As you talk about my faith, that God said, you're going to go on earth. He didn't say you're going to sit in your room and cry all day. There's things he wants
yeah,
me to do, and I have to step in and do that.
yeah. Pearl, one of the things that you said about through all of that was you have a choice. And I think that's like the crux of what we're talking about as coaches, as wanting to help other people know that there's another way. It's being able to step back and sit in that space and decide whether you're reacting to what you know, if this is a habitual response, or if you're choosing to respond. So with grief or with anything in life, because life is going to keep life in, right? It's going to keep life in. And so we just need working with a coach really helps build those tools that we may not have gotten in our early childhood, where those little us's that were. Um, I want to share. You've said it, and I feel like even in our pre-talk, just I don't talk about it often because it doesn't weigh me down as much. But I too lost my child. I lost my first son, and grief is a wild it's a wild ride, and we get to choose. We get to choose how we approach it and deal with it, and how we want to face the world going forward.
Wow, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing.
Mm,
This is a club I don't want anybody ever to join me in. Even like I try to say I don't have
no.
enemies, but if I had an enemy out there, it's not a club. I met one of my really good friends. She sat with my husband and my younger son and I when we were, when everything came because of course it came through a tragic car accident. So all that stuff. And so
Mm,
we're really great friends today. But we tell everybody all the time we wish we never met. It's like
no.
a
Yeah.
meeting you don't want to have, but like you said, it's a choice, and for me, one of the my big reason to continue the choice is because 2 days before Matt passed, and if anybody's been on this, watch this before I'm going to repeat the story because I think it's powerful. and I share it on stage, is that he was here. My husband and him own a business together. And he's like, "Hey, mom, can you throw me a bottle of water?" Well, I could not throw a football to the kid when he played football in high school. So I chucked the bottle of water across to him. And mind you, I didn't go on this journey to start putting myself first and start saying yes to myself till he was a senior in high school. Because I
Mm.
tried for 10 years, Chuck and I tried to have a family, and just wasn't working out. So when we finally adopted Matthew, I was like, okay, take that armor off of who Pearl is and set her on the shelf, because I, A, generationally, that's what I understood to do, but B, I tried for so long to, we wanted this family. I wanted to be there. So it was like that choice of like, that's what I did. But when he was a senior in high school in 2015, I mean, it's only been, a little over 10 years ago that I went from being a health coach to stepping into this journey of saying yes to yourself, because I found that I had to put myself first. And the cliche, overfill your cup, we have to do that because we don't show up the way we want to. So he's in the garage, asked me to chuck the bottle of water, and his words were, "Mom, not only have you figured out your shit, but you can finally throw something." So he, affirmed that he saw me step into who I was. So 2 days later, when we lost him, it was like I had to make that choice of how I'm going to show up. And interesting
Yeah.
enough, like with coaching too, like I use the tools in my toolbox. I remember family was here, like everybody came in, and they're, and family, no matter what kind of loss it is, we tend to not want to show emotions because we think in our head we don't want to upset the person who's gone through this loss. And the one thing I said, and it just came from my coaching, I don't know where it came from, God, it put on my heart. I told everybody, do not hold back tears, do not hold back stories, do not tell me the good, bad, or indifferent about his life, because those are memories I want to know. And the
Mhm.
tears are happy memories. In fact, I tell everybody, shortly after he passed, probably about 6 months or so, I was doing makeup one morning. I'm like, where the heck did these wrinkles come from on this left side of this eye? And I'm like, oh, those are all the tears I cried. Like I embrace those things, right? So
Yeah.
embracing the stuff in our life. And like you said, it is a choice. And so I want to bring us into what you do, because I feel like I remember as a mom, like, oh my, all the craziness and just trying to run a household. And my husband, he worked at the government, so he would leave here like 3 o'clock in the morning or some crazy hours. So it was, and then he come home and he was exhausted. So he's a great provider. He's a great supporter. Like he does laundry, he cooks, like we do things together. That's the team we are. But I know in sharing, your bio about, the replace reactivity with calm, confidence, connection, like tell us how, like, creating homes. And I know there are people listening to us are like, I can't create a home that feels steady, whole again, but we can. So help us understand, what are some of the steps and tools that you help us learn to do that?
So, thank you, by the way. Thank you for that. This is so close to my heart because, like I said before, life is going to keep coming at us, and our society, the culture that we live in here in the US, but I actually coach globally, and I'm seeing it all across the globe, is we're everything is moving faster. We have technology, everything is moving faster. Our work, we have to report and respond quickly to everything. And so the and we try to navigate all of this stuff in our heads while our children are also experiencing that, and our spouses, the people in our lives, are experiencing life. Everyone's experiencing it slightly differently, and we're just trying to make it. But what happens is we hold it all in our heads, and we don't have, many of us don't have the tools. I know that I didn't. I have spent the last 25 years working on building these tools. The most important thing, Pearl, I can tell you right now is we have to know where we are. We have to be able to land in ourselves in order to make any sort of change. And so that is the foundation of everything I do, is know where you are, know who you are. Well, I'd be like, I don't have time to spend that time. Yes, you do. It's the choice that we have to make. Because and I'm really passionate about this, about the steps that we take. I do have a framework that we go through. Land where you are without sort of measuring yourself against somebody else. Comparison is a natural instinct, but it doesn't belong if it's toxic. If it's motivating, it's awesome. But if it's causing you harm, you need to check it. But we don't do that by when we're not pausing to notice what's actually happening and what's happening in our life. So I also said before, our children are experiencing life, right? So they've got the technology and they have a lot of pressure. They're also experiencing your pressure. So you trying to do work, if entrepreneurs, building your business, running your home, taking the kids to sports events, trying to be a good spouse, or doing it all on your own, and somehow finding a way to also be a person is really hard. And they're watching us and we're reactive. We can't help it because our cups are overflowing. So we need to be able to step back and figure out what is in the cup that doesn't belong here. How can I own this space? And that's where um my and why where I start with calm before the Monday. Let's control our time a little bit better so that we can find the time to find ourselves.
I love that. Like I was writing, I'm taking all kinds of notes, you guys. Got all kinds of notes on here. I'm like, oh my god, this is so like I love to talk about this stuff because it, like I said, it took me so long to get here, and I remember, when my kids, when I really started this journey, and because when I was just doing health and wellness, I would start talking about the mind piece, like what's going on in your head, like why did you choose the cupcake, and people would go, well, I never thought about it that way. So they started referring their friends going, "Hey, my friend doesn't need to lose weight, but they really need help with their headspace." So it's like I started having these cups of teas and I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, God, you're telling me, to take a different go with my path a little differently." But one of the things you said is like know where we are. And I think to me that really stuck out because it reminds me, like we talk about the titles. Like I was wearing so many titles and I remember I think the kids were, I won a cruise. I used to do mortgages. So I won a cruise with my company I worked with. And we had my parents stay with the kids. This is before my parents divorced. And so we had them stay with the boys. And I remember coming back and my mom's like, you need to talk to Matthew because he's up there playing with his toys. And I'm like, he's up there playing and something. I go, Mom, I go, is that when he's going to sleep? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, Ma, do you remember when I was little and I had a blanket and I used to rub the ribbon on the blanket? You go, yeah. I'm like, he's playing with his army man. That's his way of putting him to sleep. I'm not going to tell him not to play with his toys. That's how he calms himself to get a good night's rest. And it was like, I realized at that moment, there's other things that they would say too. My parents were not separating grandparent to parent. They still wanted to parent my kids. So a couple of years later, we had moved here to Florida from Virginia and we were doing something, and was disciplining with my boys. We're talking about something that they'd done, and they're like, "You sound like grandma and papa." And I'm like, "Oh," I was like, "Oh, I don't like how that feels." I don't like to hear it. So finally, after they did that a couple of times, I'm like, "Okay, this is triggering me because I grew up in a house where there was no communication. My parents got an argument." You didn't talk. They didn't talk for sometimes a month, and you walked on eggshells. All of a sudden, you come home, it's like everything's fine. That's how I grew up. And so I had learned communication because of my husband, because I would shut down and he would be like, I can't figure it out if you don't talk to me. And then he'd get to the point where I wasn't catching on. So he tried to have the conversation for me. And I'd be like, oh, that's not what I would say. So we got with the boys and I said, let's create a word that if you feel like that's how you feel, I don't want to be triggered. So we came up with the word buffalo. We're big, huge Buffalo Bills fans. So they would say buffalo. And so what happened is the communication came from me being triggered and being responsive to that trigger to going, okay, so what about what I said made you want to say buffalo? So it took that trigger totally out of the conversation and we could and then it allowed them to express how they were feeling about me or what I said or did the action, right? And so it made a whole big difference. So when you said like know where we are, at that point in my life, it's like I knew where I was and I did not want to be there. So how do I change that? And then you also talked about comparison, you know, thinking
Yeah.
about comparison to my parents because of that situation. I did not want to be compared to them. And then fast forward, as I've done all this work, I realized that my household I grew up in was very narcissist, very gaslighting, and everybody will say to me, "How are you so different?" That because they know my parents and they know me, And they're like, "How are you so different?" I said, "I think it's like what you said earlier at the beginning of the show. God placed on my heart that I needed to do something bigger. So at 12 years old, I found my way to get out of the house to do things like babysitting. I took myself out of that situation. So at a very young age, I just told my kids, I worked all the time. At a very young age, I learned to people please. So I really wasn't home. I was always helping others. So I think that was the blessing of the people pleasing. It took me out of that situation. And so today, I've divorced my parents, Leon, because of their
Mm,
behaviors, because of situations like I've shared in the show before. They turned racist towards my son. There's different things they've done over our lifetime. I don't want that, you know. And so the comparison and the choice, like having the choice, for me, I started looking at what do I want to be remembered? Like as like you have your program you put together. When I put my program together, I kept hearing legacy. What's the legacy I want to leave behind when
mm,
I'm not here anymore, right? And it was coming to me, and I love because it's you know what you do too lines right up with it for people to understand and listen to today is at when I'm not here tomorrow, I don't want to be remembered for being a mom. And, you know, those are the bonus things I got to do. Those are the icing on the cake I got to do. I want to be remembered that these are the things I did for myself. This is how I showed up for me. And because I loved myself and I took care of me, I chose to do these other things for people. And I think that's to me that when you were talking about that, that's what I was taking away, like the choices, you know, how to know where we are, where we're landing, and then the comparison. Those are powerful. So when you are
yeah.
working, and I'll let you dive in on something I said, but then also lead us to when you're working with your clients and helping these families to, you know, control our time and take back our time and things like that. Share with us, unpack some of the things I just said if you want, but also share with us like
Mhm.
what do you find is the biggest challenges when people want to make that change that holds them back from making the change?
That is an awesome question. And what's coming up for me is giving themselves permission to even investigate that there's something else. I think, you know, a lot of people, words like should, I should have, and I could have, or I wish I was, instead of I am really good right now and I'm going to be something new. Even if you don't know what that is, if you know that where you are right now doesn't feel like what you want to be, that's when it starts getting tricky, right? Like, okay, so what happens with comparison? You know, my kids are unruly and I haven't been to a hair salon in a year. I cut my own, you know, like all of the things, like it doesn't feel possible. And so just knowing that it doesn't feel possible, and anybody listening here today, it is possible. And I think just that first knowledge, like it is possible. And I'm not talking about, world order. I'm like, in your space, it is possible to feel different. It is possible to feel steady. And so those are the things. But in order to truly get started, you have to know it's possible and believe perhaps it's possible for you. And that's the first beginning, the beginning of the journey is, well, what do I want? So what does better feel like to me? So hopefully I answer that first question, at least the way that's popping out for me, is that believing that it's possible.
Yeah,
Um,
I love that you said that because so many times, even when we say we want to do the work, what holds us back is we still don't believe it. We still don't think
mm,
it's, you know, possible. Like you were talking as you were saying what you were saying, I'm like going, I get to. Like that just like when I
yeah.
tell all the time to myself, I'm like, I get to go do this. I get not, it's not I have to because I get to is
Right.
because I've decided I want to as well, right? Like as somebody who was a people pleasing addict, like I was like, oh, I gotta go do this. You know, why did I sign up for this? But now that I'm in the space of deciding, does it meet my energy? Does it meet my goals? Does it put me where I want to be in my goals? Then if it's yes, then it's like I get to go do this. Like tomorrow, I get to go support, you know, this great event tomorrow that's all about, you know, self care, you know, and I get to go and, do some of the things that I do. And if I feel like it's a have to, then I know I made the wrong choice. So I still show up. I put myself in the headspace going, okay, Pro, you committed to it. You feel like it's a have to now. Put yourself like they want you to show up. So how can you show up that you feel good about it, right? And so
Mhm.
that's, like you talk about that decision, because it does hold us back when we don't know
Yeah.
what to choose. And I remember, and I shared this on the show before, is Megan Trainor. She's one of my favorite singers. I
Mm.
I I I
Yeah.
play probably all her songs in my car and dance crazy while I'm driving, because it's such great music, that's very positivity stuff. And
Mm.
my song that somebody says when you come on stage, I'm like, I love me. That's a song I love to walk on stage to. And I remember she was sharing the story after she had her first child, and there's an irony to the story right now for her too. Is like she didn't feel confident in who she was. Like she just
Mhm.
felt like, after we have our kids, our bodies change, all this stuff happens to our bodies. And so her therapist, she shared, said, you need to stand in front of the mirror naked and you need to find something beautiful about yourself. Well, most of us go, like when I do my retreats and tell people they have to come with no makeup on, they freak out. I'm like, give me a break. So she started saying, she was like, I couldn't. And then she started getting into, oh, I have that wrinkle because I just delivered my son. Like she started finding the beauty of that. Now, the irony of the story is, if you see her today, her health journey has been so transformative that she looks beautiful. Not that she didn't need her, but she completely, like, she's lost some weight. She looks amazing. That people are now the reverse of it, going, you've lost too much. Like they're it's like you can never win. So the whole thing is, like we talked about, we're never going to make everybody happy, right? I mean, especially when you do boundaries. I mean, like the boundaries I share with my parents. My mother on my birthday reared her head up on my birthday. Like she has me blocked. I don't block any of my family because I choose not to. But she has to go through the process of unblocking me to try to narcissist me, right? And so it's like,
Mm.
okay. And so the permission part and the and getting to, I feel like you said, those things, if we don't allow ourselves, they're going to hold us back. They're not going to let us move
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah. And that what you're talking about is the being able to tap into that, set the boundaries, to make the choices, to know that like I choose to do this and I get to do this. That's the result of all this beautiful work that you've done. Another thing that comes up often for people who are interested in doing this kind of work is, Leonne, I've read all the books. I've been to all of the things. I've attended all of and I've listened to all the podcasts, but where do I have no idea how to start? Like, how do I even start? How do I implement all of this? It's like I had a client talk to me yesterday and she said, I know all about the how. I know nothing about the what or the why. And I thought that was really interesting because we can really get stuck and really overwhelmed with the just all of it, right? We have information overload. People are, back to our kids, they're doom scrolling, back to our kids who are spending too much time in front of screens, you know, and us, because we're moving so fast, our children and my grandchildren, right? So, and our grandchildren are, a result of a society that's moving way too fast. So, starting where are you and what does better look like for you? So, um, I'd love to tell you how I start, like how I think that we should start by talking about Calm Before the Monday and why I
Yeah,
created
no,
it.
I would love that.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say is, like, I love that somebody was vulnerable enough to say, I know how. I don't know what the why, the why or the what is. Like, why am I here? What did I, and sometimes I think, what did I do to myself? Right. I love that, because like I'll have clients come to me and they've worked with other coaches before. I'm like, okay, so why me? You've worked with a coach before, so what's the difference? Like I want to
Mm.
know, because I'm not gonna just bring you on just to bring you on. I want to know why. And they'll be like, and the one thing I hear all the time, Pro, you're authentic. I watch you online. You share your good, bad, and ugly of your life, and you let us know we can still survive. And I'm like, okay, are you ready to do all those things? Because if you're not ready to do all those things, I'm not the person for you because I'm going to push you and I'm going to make sure. Because like the first thing I do is I go through your joy list. It's like, oh, I can give you 10 things. I'm like, no, 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 no. It's going to take you 6 weeks to give me 10 things. They're like, what? And like, I'll spend like 20 minutes on one thing. They're like, oh my gosh. Like they'll tell me, I'm like, so what about that makes you happy? And what about that? Like we do it until they can't answer anymore. I go, so seeing the sky is blue is not what makes you happy. The fact that you get to wake up every morning, you get to open your eyes, you get to embrace the fact that God has painted this beautiful picture. That's really what makes you happy, you know. And so those kind of things I work on. So I love that somebody was vulnerable enough to say, because there's many people in this world that think that and they're afraid to say and ask it, which I think is really
Yeah.
really cool. So yeah, so talk on that and then bring us right into it because I want to know.
So, oh man, so many things. Okay. Um, yes, knowing the how, like I know how to be, I know I need to be, I need, let me give you an example. I know I need to say kinder things to myself, but I don't have time, but I'm really overwhelmed and it makes me kind of a bitch. And, you know, and all of these things that people, right? And so then they're saying negative things. So they know how to say those things, but what do I need to say to heal me? Why do I need to say it? And so that's where people get really stuck. What would better look like to you? And I kind of want to just ask everybody, you know, today, even listening, what would better look like to you? Like, not like better like in a year or more, but 6 months from now. What would it feel like to be you 6 months from now that would feel better? Um, so I'm just going to leave that question out there, if it's okay, Pearl, because I I think that people need to really
I
think about that
love
because
that.
that's
I
the
love that.
why.
I think it's a powerful question. And we always try to name our shows. So I know my
Yeah.
editor is going to listen to this. I'm going to tell him, you know, the title of the show is What Would Better Look Like to You. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
tell us about
Mm.
like walk us through the
S-
compass. Tell us a little bit about that. The world. Yeah.
Okay. So the Compass is a premium program that is actually launching in mid January. Um, I will uh, so I'll tell you about it. This is an 8-week program that literally will help. It's a group coaching program that does also have some private coaching with me. But we start by landing where you are. Where are you in your life? What is going on? What are you feeling? And so we really kind of dive into landing where you are and identifying just in a short time, like baby steps, right? Because we need to make small steps. If you read James Clear's book, you just need 1% more better. You just need to make one step. So we land where we are. Then the second point, it's a 5-phase program. The second phase is meeting your inner voice. We need to teach her or him to be our ally instead of our parasite, because it's parasitic. A lot of people say it's their mother's voice. A lot of people say that our inner voice is really awful and toxic and really holds us back. And that's where a lot of kind of magical work can happen. For me, it has been transformative. My inner voice is not mean to me. And that changed everything for my life. It took a long time for me to figure out how to teach her to speak to me properly. Then we need to identify and break some of the cycles that are holding us back. Like what's driving that voice? What's driving where we are? That's phase 3. And so we really work on individual cycles, kind of like Pearl, like you just making the decision to divorce your parents because that relationship was not serving you or your family. And so you made that decision. That's a hard decision to make. And congratulations for doing that, you know. And there's many things that many of us are afraid to break because this is what's always been done, this is how my family does it. There's also some really great things that we need to honor and embrace about the cycles and the things. We don't need to be angry because or upset with ourselves because we don't do things like other people. So breaking the cycles. And then the last phase is where we really bring all of these pieces together. And so we create a legacy in ourselves of how we're going to put this on repeat, because this is going to be a lifetime. It's a lifetime journey. But all of these tools I've put together so that people who go through this program, when they come out, they'll have them in their toolbox so that as life keeps life in, we know what tools to pull out when.
I
And
love
yeah,
this is such a great breakdown. I like it. It's kind of like I've created this like 6 month program. This is like I love this. Like I think people should like really look at this, especially when it comes to the hard decision part, because that's, I mean, talking to ourselves, growing up, I mean, I'm 60, I turned 61 on Monday. I watched my granny
happy
take care.
birthday.
Thank you. I watched my granny take care of like when my dad was in Vietnam War, we didn't stay on base. You got kicked off a base. So we went up to upstate New York. So my granny then took care of all of us with my mom. And my mom then, she was working and all that stuff. So, how to, we generationally, that's how I knew that I was supposed to take care of, do these titles, right? And so the legacy part, like, it's so powerful because like breaking the cycle, like of those generational things that we've got or the negative talk we tell ourselves, all of that is so powerful because when we start doing that, we I feel like and watching you do this and even just saying it, like the feelings that were coming up for me, it's like, I can step in who I'm supposed to be because I'm doing this work. We're Sometimes I feel like people are afraid to go out and be who they want to be because they of the judgment. And I'm like, judge me all you want. That means you're talking about me, but I don't care. This is if I feel good and it feels right to me, I mean, of course, like you talk about with my parents, I got huge pushback. And I finally said to one person one time, I go, I got to ask you a serious question. If this was my husband treating me the way I'm telling you, would you want me to stay with this person? And they're like, well, no, that's different. I go, it's not different. It's a relationship that somebody's not choosing, their choice is to treat me the way they're treating me. And I said the best advice I got when my parents were divorcing after 43 years of marriage, the best advice I got was for Father Bill. He sat down. I went to a weekend women's retreat and we all got time with him. And I was like, I feel like at 41, I was when I divorced. I said, I feel like I'm like the 7-year-old having to pick sides. He goes, you don't have to pick sides, Pearl. And that's where he said, we don't pick our parents. God picks our parents. We're always going to love them. They're always going to mean something to us. But if they can't play by your, and he said to me, literally goes, so what's your favorite sport? I'm like, football. How many men are in the field? And I answer, he's like, okay, if they can't be one of those men on the field, they sit in the bench. And then if you want to bring them back in, that's your choice. And if they still don't play right, that's your choice, put them back on the bench. That's how you play. That's how you play sports. I'm like, so when he said that, it was like so eye opening. And so I'm like, this is how I want to live. And things are so different once I started doing that and stepping into that, right? And I love that you talk about like I still go back to what you said, land where you're at. Like just start where you're at because
yeah,
that's where you're at right now. You're making a choice to start and make a change. And for those that are listening and watching, change is hard. It's a lot of hard work. And once you do it and you step into the false evidence appearing real feeling of it all, then you come out the other side and you're like, man, if I can overcome that, I can overcome anything. And it brings me back to our mutual friend Jeremy from Moxie. I was talking with him about a mastermind kind of retreat thing he's going to do, I think in Costa Rica or something like that. And we were talking. He goes, "Yeah, we're gonna do this thing. We're gonna jump off a mountain into the jungle." And I'm like, and I went, "Ooh," and he's like, he goes, "Come on." I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if I can do that." He goes, "You can do it." Well, the other day, we all agree that Big Brother listens to us, right? So ever
yeah.
since him and I have had that conversation, I
Hmm.
keep seeing this thing about and he explained it just the same way where it's like those things, it's like it looks like a bat thing, you're the base jumping, I think it's called.
Hmm.
And these people are in Sedona, they're base jumping off the side of the mountain. I'm like going, okay, God, I see you, I hear you. Okay, you're telling me
It
something. But
sounds
it
amazing.
sounds amazing because going back, it brought me that came up when
Yeah.
you said like, land where you're at. It's like I can choose to keep staying on this piece of land, or I can choose to say, let's go, let's go. I'm gonna take off. I don't want to just land and stay where I'm at.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And Have you ever read the book The Shack? Sorry, a little bit
Yes.
squirrel.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
So do you
Yes.
remember at the end of the book when Mac is walking with Jesus and they're on this path and there's so many different paths, right? And different people are on different parts of the paths. And he turns around and he says to Jesus, now this is, I'm paraphrasing. Um, but he says to him, what are all those paths? Like there's Buddhists, there's all, there's all these different religions, but it's all going this. And he said, all paths lead to me. And
I remember.
something about that just was transformative to me in my soul when I understood that that's the paths of life. Like we're all on different parts of the path, but we're all going the same place. We
Yeah.
all, I mean, I would say the majority of people are looking for to own their life and to live peacefully and to model the behaviors if they are responsible for raising new people, to not pass on the junk that our
Right.
children don't need. But our parents didn't know that. They didn't
Right.
know that they didn't have to pass on, but we know. And so we can.
Yeah.
And it's our choice. And if we choose to, oh, and by the way, we were like, oh, Leon, I'm so tired of doing the work. And I'm like, it's not actually exhausting when you know how to do the work because, oh, you're going to be doing the work your whole life. So
Yeah.
never think
I
that you're just done. Yeah.
Yeah, and because we're and yeah, you're gonna do the whole life, and I'm glad I remember. I love that book, The Shack, and I remember that part too. It says all paths lead to me. It's so true. All paths lead to there. It's our choice, and that's why when I coach my clients, I'm like, I'm like, I talk about. I have a thing called the Shiro method. I talk about, are you tired of being weak and doing things for yourself? Are you tired of waking up in the middle of the night being, I forgot to do this, I didn't send that? Are you tired of not having the joy and to do things you've always wanted to do? And are you tired of like standing behind somebody else's life so that you don't feel like you're seen anymore? And they'll say, "Oh my God, that's so me." I'm like, "Okay, so let's talk about how you can become stronger and understanding the word yes is just as happily said as the word no. So step in the
Mhm.
word no. How you can be happier because as you start becoming stronger and saying no, you're going to sleep better at night. And then when those two things happen, then you're gonna be like, well, let's go. What am I gonna do now? Kind of like what you said, like, let's take off. Where am I gonna land? With this
Yes.
empowered new self. And then I'm like, and then instead of you walking behind somebody else's light, you're gonna set a tone of a light that people want to walk beside your light. So you're gonna radiantly show up in rooms where you want to be. And then what happens is you start being the original person you were supposed to be on this earth. Hence why I talk about the beginning of the show, being a teacher, being a coach. I dim that
Yes.
light so it's like, when we can step into those things that we're both talking about here, it becomes very powerful. And like you said, I always say to like even to my kids, my boys, like, well, I'm like, I only know what I know because that's all I was taught. I get to choose to be different. I get like my mother and father would never ever like I said to my brother on Monday when my mother unblocked me to send me a birthday wish. I said to my brother, go, as much as she unblocked me on my birthday, she could have unblocked me all these many years and picked up the
Mhm.
phone and I would have
Right.
answered. And so I have those conversations with my kids. Like even after Matt passed, we sat down with Nate. I'm like, Nate, I know I didn't do things right. I know you stood behind the light of your brother for many things that he struggled with. And that was my mistake. I own it. I just want to make sure that you understand that it wasn't intentional. It's just what I knew and whatever I can do for us going forward, just tell me. But I want my kid because Lord help me if I want to tell my parents any of that stuff growing up. You don't talk to your parents. That was a whole setup we had, right?
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
having, like you said, we get to know and even the generational now, I love when my son comes over and him and my husband talk. Although my daughter-in-law and I have to go, okay, enough politic talks, but they'll have these great talks, and usually it's on politics or something going on like that. But
Mm.
it's fun to see it because I never had that growing up. Like it's like, oh, the adults are talking, go and the kids in the other room, right? You didn't
Mm.
understand. And so it's really cool to see this going on. And I tell my son all the time, I'm like, I'm so glad you're learning these because things I tell him things will be different with your kids. Just remember there's a fine line to being a friend to your kids and being that parent as well. So you've got to make sure you know how to do both. And
Yeah.
so
Uh, that
so
balance is hard.
it's
Yeah.
hard, yeah, and find that harmony of it all. It's just like, but I just think it's so
Yeah.
powerful. So tell everybody how do they reach out to you? And we're gonna put everything in the show notes as well to reach out to you, but
Yeah.
share that information.
Okay, so the website is thewondermama.com. M-A-M-A, wondermama.com. Is that's just the easiest way to find me. And um, I have an entry. I have a small community that I run called Calm Before the Monday. I wanted to quickly tell you about that. That community is all about time management and routines that support the busy working professional parent who's just trying to make it all work. And I have a structured framework in there. So uh, visit me on the website. There's contact information there. It's easy to reach me. Um, and just come. I let me hold space for you and walk you from where you are to where you want to be. Yeah.
I love that. It's so much fun. I have like so many different titles in my head for the show for today. It's so much fun. This has been a blast. I just looked over I'm like, oh my gosh, our time's almost over. It always happens. We get these great conversations. So we're gonna put all that into show notes so everybody can find you and reach out to you. But I did forewarn Leon that before we let her go, we have our better questions, better life cards. So I'm gonna shuffle them. She's gonna tell me when to stop, and we're gonna both answer the card that she pulls. So here we go.
Stop.
All right. So the card we have is who is important to me? Who's important to you? Do you want me to go first or you want to go first?
You go first.
Okay. I
I've
never
got it
asked that
though.
before. So, who's important to me is truly, I can just say myself. Like, I'm important to me because if I'm not important to myself, I can't be somebody for somebody else. I can't show up the way I want to. So, that's who's important to me is taking care of me first.
Ah, she stole my answer. Yes, I am important to me, but I wouldn't have answered it that way just 5 years ago. Um, of course, my family's important to me. Great relationships are important to me. And so you said who. And so, yes, my partner is important to me. My husband is important to me, my family. So, but yes, me first. Yes.
I love that because it's so true. I mean, we all, they're all so important. I love when I go. I no longer can watch award shows because I took Dale Carnegie years ago, and he talked about thank you very much, thank one person, thank you very much, get off the stage, right? So now I can't, ever since I've never been able to watch an award show. The other part of that, since I've done this work and, on myself and working through all this, when people get up and they'll say, well, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm like, no, that's not who you are. It's part of your story, but tell
Yeah.
me you. I want to know you. And it's funny because, like,
Yeah.
normally, like I said at the beginning of the show, I have guests come on to pre interview. I want to make sure A, they're going to show up, and B, for a good conversational piece, right? And so I let this agency, they're like, can we put somebody on the show? I'm like, sure. So they started putting people on, and I told them my requirements, and they never really were communicating. So I had to cut them off from putting people on my schedule because they didn't communicate. The first meeting was a 15-minute, let's get to know one another, make sure we're a good fit. And yes, I get your bio, and yes, I read your bio, but I want to hear it from you, right? Because I don't want to hear a chat GPT typed up or an assistant type up. I want to hear you tell me. So I remember this lady, she came on one time, and I asked her, tell me about you. She's like, well, don't you have my bio? I go, yeah, I have your bio, but I don't know about you. Well, I don't have time for this stuff. Aren't we? I'm like, we're not recording the show right now. Well, and she got mad. What do you mean we're not recording the show? So I had researched her just through her bio. I hadn't really gone and looked for other stuff she does. And then when because I usually will do that like after find the links and stuff like that. Well, one of the links that I had missed is I've always wanted to do my retreats in Costa Rica. I've never
Mm.
found a house in Costa Rica that would fit what my requirements are. I went and was like, okay, let me go see who she is just so I can make sure I know all aspects. She had a freaking beautiful house in Costa Rica. And because she had that attitude towards me and couldn't be open, I was like, nope, let me take her off the list, But so it's like, I want to land where I'm at and have people on the show. So today you were exactly where I want it to show the
Oh,
land. I love that, everything you're doing. I think it's so powerful. And
thank you.
unfortunately, I didn't realize that some of our stories intertwine together, and so many other things.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to have you come back on. We'll have to talk about the family part and like how your family,
Oh, yes.
the Brady Bunch family. We got to do a follow up session to that, so we'll definitely do that. But But I just want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for trusting me because we didn't do a pre thing because we met in Moxie and we're like, here we
Mhm.
are. So if anybody wants to know about Moxie, just ask me, reach out to me. Moxie is a great mastermind networking group that we meet online and we actually work on people in that group. We work on each other's business. We support one another and it's freaking amazing and it's godly as well. So
Eh,
I just love it.
I love it too. And also thank you for trusting me and believing in me and inviting me. Uh, me.
Yeah.
But and letting me share the Wonder Mama with
Yeah.
all of the Wonder Mamas out there. Um, and I hope that you will have me back because this
I
was
will
fun.
have you back for sure. So
Yeah.
listen, before we let you go and everybody else head off the show, I just want to remind everybody, like we've talked today, we come into this world, we have a lot of tough things on our outer shell that we've got to work through. But once you start opening your own personal oyster, you're going to find your inner pearl to greatness. And I know today you're going to go out and shine that greatness and be the hero that you are. So have an amazing day. I just had so much fun with Leon. Thank you, Leon, for coming on and joining us. And I mean, I literally have you guys like a ton of notes here. And the one thing I want you to really hone in on is like, where do you start? That's a great question. And I'm sure many of you, when you're on this journey to put yourself first and go into self-care, you ask yourself, my life is lifing so much, I don't know where to start, right? As she talked about, like life does life and where do you start, like maybe you do know the how but you don't know the what or the why. So if you're struggling with any of that, I'd love to have a conversation with you and have a deep dive into how you can start showing up stronger, happy, empowered, radiant, and that original self you're meant to be. And then also, reach out to Leon because she's amazing. I love her energy. And we're actually going to have her come back on because there's some really cool backstories in both of our families that, as you learned today too, that she shared, that she lost a child. And that's what I want to create here on my show because we created at our retreat. We have women show up at our retreat and they share things that maybe they haven't shared before, that they're afraid to be vulnerable and share. So if you're ready to start, just click the link in the bio or go to wsliving.com. Again, wsliving.com. And I love to chat with you. Have a great day.
Why'd it take so long to leave you in the